what's up? Welcome back to another great episode of the Life in a Show podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life in a Show podcast, we help people learn how to create incredible, thriving businesses that are profitable, that are enjoyable, that are fun, that also support and provide for the life you want to live. In today's episode, I'm running solo, and we're going to talk about something called the 4 stages of financial prosperity. These are as close as I can give you to a formula, a blueprint for getting a hold of your finances and having your money work for you. Now, everyone knows and has heard this phrase of having your money work for you instead of you working for your money, but oftentimes they lack the tactical know-how of how to apply this in their lives and how to make this a reality. And so this episode, I'm going to share with you how to really do this. And it's by following these 4 stages, which, by the way, they're 4 steps in order. And the first mistake I see people make is they don't follow the stages in order, and they're surprised when they don't get the result they're looking for. That's like, putting the frosting in your baking mix before you bake the cake. And in order to get the result you're looking for, you really have to put these in the right order. You have to follow these steps in the right order. So let's kind of jump right into these. Life Fair has been, by the way, Life Fair has been teaching these for gosh, well over a decade now. We've had thousands of people use these proven steps to get a hold of their finances, and you can be next. So let's get into it. Now, the first step, the first stage of financial prosperity is creating your vision. Now, if you've been listening to Life Fair Show podcast for any amount of time, you've heard us mention vision probably on every episode. And it's because it's the bedrock. It's the foundation for all other pieces in your life, and actually, surprisingly for many people, in your business. Now, what a vision is, it's a magical document, and we spend 3 full days diving into this at our Get a Life Getaway and helping you create a vision. Your vision is a magical breathing document that is a combination. It's a hybrid document of your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, your initiatives, your passions, what you want to be, who you want to show up as, what you want to do, what you want to experience, what you want your days to look like, all of this stuff into one, all of it into one document. And you may be wondering, what does this have to do with getting a hold of my finances? And the reason that is important is because your vision really dictates quite closely where you're going to spend money, what is important to you, what are your priorities. And so this way you can use your vision as a really good metric as to whether or not the purchases you're making and where you're spending and investing your money, is it getting you closer to that vision, or is it getting you further away, right? Because I think many times without having a vision, we just spend money and then you wonder where it went. Certainly that's been the case for me. Not too much anymore, grateful for that. But at one point in time, it's like, I'd make a good amount of money, a sizable amount of money. And then, 3 weeks later, I'm like, where did all this money go? And it's because I didn't really have a vision to tell me where it should go, to tell me the things that are important to me. And so this is really valuable because many times, people aren't living their vision, and they also don't have the money to show for it because they're just kind of spending I don't want to say frivolously, but certainly without intent and without direction. And so the vision really gives you that direction. And so this is something that you can look at now. So when you spend money, you can ask yourself, is this part of my vision? Is this funding my vision? Is this getting me closer to the places I want to be? Or is this kind of just, I don't want to say a waste of money, but is it just kind of is it not being efficient and effective and using it in a way that really will help me move forward? And so that's the first reason this is important. Now, the other reason this is important is because your vision at some level will require money to live, right? And so some of the things on your vision will be internal, or they'll be, not really have a price tag. They'll be intangible. Perhaps it's connecting with a family member once a week, or being close in a relationship, and that really doesn't necessarily require money. Now we could say it requires, I guess, your cell phone bill, but I wouldn't typically require or consider that rather as an expense for your vision. But there are things on there that do cost money, and what that means is you need to kind of know how much that costs. If you're going to fully live your vision, you got to have an estimate, at least a ballpark estimate, as to what that's going to cost. And so the reason this whole vision step is the first step is because it does have a direct influence on the spending and the investing of your money, where you decide to put it and where those decisions get you in terms of your vision. So that's the first step. Now, the second step, Moody, and by the way, do not skip this step. Like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. This is where a lot of people want to just jump right into the money, and they're making a huge mistake, because even if you're successful, in stage 3 or stage 4, it's very unlikely you'll stay there. It won't be sustainable, and it certainly won't be as fun and exciting and meaningful as if you actually do create a vision and go through them in the right order. So that's stage 1. Stage 2, this is breaking even financially. Now we're getting into the numbers. And what breaking even means is we are making the amount of money we need to survive. Now, there's a few nuances here that I really want to get into. I will say this. Stage 2 is supposed to be temporary. You are not supposed to stay in stage 2 forever. However, with that being said, I would say 99% of our population, of our culture, is stuck in stage 2. These are the people who are living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, right? They're scraping by at the end of the month, and they're like, man, I hope that and February is a great month, and those 31-day months are tougher, right? And so that's not a place I want you to be, but it's a reality that we have to contend with. Now, one huge influential factor with stage 2 is this is you working for your money. All right, this is not your assets passively or residually, contributing finances to what you need to make. This is you trading. You're trading hours for dollars. Okay, you are trading your life away for money, and so that's another reason why we want to get through here as quickly as possible. And so there's a number of problems with this approach, and the first one is that you are a bottleneck in this process because you only have so many hours. And you only have so much time and attention and energy you can give to make money. Even if you're a high wage earner, that you're still a bottleneck. And this is why, for instance, we want you to get you to stage 4 as quickly as possible, where your assets now provide your income. Now, one of the things you can do here in this stage is, of course, you can try to focus on higher leverage activities or higher wage activities where you're making more money. Certainly, if you've heard us talk about the SEED process, SEAD, strategic elimination, automation, delegation, this can help you find those high leverage, high ROI activities, and that'll help you get through this. But it's at some point you got to recognize that even if you make more money here, there's a real downside that you got to contend with, and that is that many people will end up just spending more money if they make more money. And this is, what we've discussed in the past as being golden handcuffs. And maybe you've experienced this for yourself, where you're making, hey, you just finished college and you're making 40 grand a year, and you're living on 40 grand a year. Then 8 years later, you're making 100 grand a year, and you're still scraping by, like nothing's changed. You're still kind of breaking even, and it's because people's expenses tend to appreciate and increase just like their income does. And so that delta, that difference between income and expenses never really shifts, right? You never really get that growth because your tastes mature and evolve as your income increases. And so this is a problem. This is where, you've probably heard me in the past talk about this, is really winning with money requires an offense and a defense. You can't just have one of them. And the defense is kind of how you manage your expenses and the money that you have, like your stewardship of those things. And then your offense is your ability to generate an income. And my personal approach is to focus on the defense first, because the defense will allow you to build that delta as you make more money. Because the defense, if you learn how to have discipline and really kind of get a hold of your expenses, then when you do increase your income, you will keep what you earn, right? It's really all about what you keep, not what you make. And so that's why I encourage people to think about their defense first. Now, I will say this, like, defense is a a limited game. It's a finite game, meaning that you can't spend. At some point, there's a law of diminishing returns, and you're not going to really save any more money. And I'm not asking anybody to live on ramen noodles and tuna fish. And so, at some point, you do have to turn your attention to offense. Once you've reached that kind of reasonable. Minimum lifestyle that you feel comfortable with, then I would turn to offense. And of course, making more money and cutting back your expenses is the quickest way to get through stage two. But sometimes, just focus on one of those maybe is where you want to start so you don't get overwhelmed. The other thing I'll say about stage two is one of the big things that influences this is how much money do you really need to live, and what is your lifestyle? And is this something that has become bloated? Can you simplify your lifestyle or even downsize? One of the other factors here is debt. Life Air has talked quite a bit extensively about debt, and I don't want to get into a good debt, bad debt discussion right now necessarily, but recognize that, good debt is good while it is good, and then when it's not, it's not. So, that mortgage you have on a rental property is great. It's making you money, and your tenant's paying down your mortgage until they're not anymore and they move out. And now you have to pay that or find somebody else to move in there quickly. And so, just recognize the lower you can keep your debt, the better off you'll be. And that's just my general opinion. Or if you're gonna have debt, my encouragement is to really minimize the amount you have. And that's not just for investments. I think there's more creative ways than just taking out financing to pull down deals if you're in business. But also certainly for consumer debt. Like there's no real reason to accumulate a bunch of consumer debt, because that is just, and I'm not saying this with judgment, because I had almost $90,000 of credit card debt at one point in my life, and it was really smart until it wasn't. Because I was, flipping houses and things like that, and it all worked until it didn't. And so I would not recommend anybody do that. That was a lot of lost sleep, a lot of stress associated with, literally thousands of dollars of interest being paid a month on that credit card debt. And this, by the way, this is back in the day, where rates, gosh, were probably 8% lower than they are now. Like, so it's even worse now. Right now we're over 20% interest, which is insane. So really, like, you got to really look just very carefully about consumer debt and about investment debt, because this will keep you in stage two, because that's money you have to pay, and therefore you're breaking even. And breaking even, I think of as like treading water, and treading water can be exhausting after a period of time. At some point, you want to start swimming for the shore. And so just consider that very carefully. And this is where, so many people get stuck here. And especially when your income requires you to generate it, like I talked about, all it takes is one little thing that inhibits your ability to work or compromises, your ability to perform a job, and things can come crashing down. And so whether it's a health issue, or whether somebody else in your family needs your attention, or, God forbid you want to take time off and take a vacation, that will really it'll be the pressure test for how you've set up your life and your business. And so you really do want to get out of stage two as quickly as possible. All right. And by the way, that is my least favorite stage, because I don't want anybody to get stuck there. So let's move on and start moving towards wealth. And so that starts in stage three. So stage three, if you do some of the things I just recommended for stage two, minimizing your income's reliance on you, you've cut expenses, you've learned how to live on less, you have increased your income and done it in a way that really maximizes your income generating skills. And so if you've done all these things, now you start to generate in excess. And this is stage three. Now we're generating in excess of cash. And so this is cool. Like, this is great. This means you're making more than you're spending. And a really cool thing about this is it starts to give you breathing room. And, you start to feel a sense of security, which is really important, because I think, most people I meet don't think most creatively and aren't most effective when they're stressed out all the time, which is typically accompanied by when you're in stage two, right? But when you're in stage three, you start to get that margin, you start to get that safety net. And I see something really incredible happen with people as they start to kind of really blossom in terms of their ability to kind of do things better and to perform in a way that isn't motivated by stress or fear quite as much. And so that gives them a real upper hand in terms of how they can function as a business owner, because they're making better decisions. Nobody makes great decisions under stress, right? That's an inhibitor to our mind's ability to really think through things. And so you start to think better, which then accelerates this whole snowball. And that's great. Now, there's a couple of things to look out for in stage three. And number one is increasing your lifestyle. So this is the point where, certainly I'll tell you my story, is when I had all that credit card debt, and by the way, this did not take, even a year. It took me a couple of years to get out of this. When I paid off $10,000 of my credit card debt, I gave myself $1,000 of a reward, to kind of help myself stay focused and stay motivated. Many of those rewards went back into just paying out further debt, but there may or may not be a couple guitars in my house that are the results of those $1,000 rewards. But the thing you want to be careful of is increasing your lifestyle, because when I started having this extra money, when I finally did pay down that debt, I was so used to having all of that money come right into my bank account and then right out the door, literally usually the same day, to pay my bills, to pay this credit card debt, to do all these things. And when I first paid off all this debt, it was super strange for me because I just had this weird sensation, what am I forgetting to pay? What's going on right now? Something's wrong. I looked at my spreadsheet with all my credit cards, and yes, I had a spreadsheet of all my credit cards, and everything's paid off. And I'm like, this is so weird. And there was something inside me that almost felt uncomfortable with having money. And I know that sounds insane, but I remember this, where it felt really bizarre to actually have money in my bank account and still have it be there. When I check a week later and 2 weeks later and a month later, and guess what? Then the next month there's more money in there. I'm like, okay, this is weird. This is super uncomfortable. And I tell you that because sometimes when you're so used to being broke, you just go back to being broke because it's comfortable. So you spend the money, right? Or you're like, hey, this is a great time for us to add that patio in the back of the house, or we're going to repave our driveway or redo the kitchen cabinets, right? And you spend the money, and maybe it's a one-time expenditure, or even worse is you take on a monthly expenditure that now you're like, hey, now we're going to, let's get those new cars. Now we can afford some new leases, or car payments. And so you increase your monthly needs, and then you just go back to stage two. And so this is where you really got to kind of keep an eye on this and have the discipline to put that off, right? Put that off. You're not there yet. I'm not saying you have to do this forever, but certainly what I'll also tell you is that many times I see people make these cuts or make these decisions, and they get to a point where they're making all this money that they wanted to make before, but they really don't miss that thing that they got rid of. And so just give yourself that flexibility and just try it out for yourself. Try it on, see if it fits. Just consider just living the same way you had been prior to making this extra money, and whatever that looks like, and see what that feels like. Because many times I think you'll see many of those most important parts of your vision really don't require too much money. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. And so in stage three, you can really, what do you do with this money? So we just talked about being, caution against kind of increasing expenses. You can invest this money. You can certainly put it in the market. You can put it in a high yield savings account. You could give it away. You could tithe it. You can give to charity. You could save it. My recommendation is to consider taking this money and putting it into an asset that can provide for you some sort of residual cash flow. Now, there is no such thing as passive income, but there is residual income. And so perhaps you can go, at least at today's rates, you can put it in a high yield savings account and get 3 or 4%. You can go in dividend producing stocks, or what I kind of like is real estate and business. And so, for instance, let's use an example of a rental property, because many people can relate to this. Let's say you buy a rental property and it spits off $1,000 a month for cash flow. And let's say that you need $4,000 a month to live. Now, that may or may not be close to what you need, but none of my degrees are in math, so we're going to always use easy math. And so what you've essentially done is taken $1,000 and put it towards your stage two needs that again were $4,000. And so you've replaced 25% of what you need to make, to survive and to meet those needs. And so when you do that, now you have choices. Now you can work less if you want, or you can accelerate that snowball and now you're not making $4,000 a month, you're making $5,000 a month, and then you can start building that asset-based income. You can start building a source of income that does not require you to do that. And so that's where financial freedom really comes from, when your assets provide all of that. Now, using our example, we would need 4 rental properties to replace all of your income, right? So that'd be $4,000, which breaks you even. And now you can decide how much you want to work, where you want to work, the kinds of things you want to do. So that's the kind of the magic formula here. The only other thing I would say is I'd encourage you to buy assets debt-free if you are able to, or partner with other people who have the money. And we see a lot of this in Life and Air, where people will do something called debt-free investing that Steve Cook kind of taught me about, where one investor will come to the table with the money and somebody else will manage and oversee and run the property. And we're just using an example of a rental property here. And they split that cash flow in some predetermined fashion. And that way, when a mortgage payment would have been due if you had used traditional financing, now you have the ability to, like, that, nobody gets paid, but you don't have the emotional influence of that debt having you make bad decisions. And so this is, that's beyond the scope of this episode, but I just want to open your eyes to different ways to do this. And if you're going to take on debt, certainly my encouragement would be to take on, again, as little debt as possible, so that you can really maximize cash flow, and you're not forced to come out of pocket for these things when they're not performing. All right, that is the 4 stages of financial prosperity. Stage 1, create your vision. Stage 2, break even with your own effort and your own time. Stage 3, generate excess. And stage 4, have income producing assets provide the recurring income for you and your lifestyle. I hope you found this valuable. We teach this at our Get a Life Getaway. And at our Get a Life Getaway, by the way, we spend most of that time really honing in and helping you clarify your exact vision for your life. Then we kind of go into the action steps. We help you reverse engineer the waypoints, the things and steps you can do to help you achieve that actual vision. This is not a pie in the sky approach to life. This is really tactical and strategic. We figure out how much money your vision costs to live. We figure out what your daily calendar would look like in an ideal week. We figure out all these things to really bring it down to ground level and help you create this for yourself. If you're interested, there'll be a link below. Otherwise, you can just go to lifeandlear.com and learn more. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you do something with it, and we'll see you next week. Take care.